Hello, everyone. I'm Thomas Michaud, for those of you who are new, and welcome to Real Guitar Success Live. I'm going to do my best to answer all your guitar-related questions today. Feel free to add some questions to the chat, and welcome everybody who's already here. It's great to see a nice big lineup. I'm going to start with the pre-submitted questions, and feel free to add questions as we go along, because then I'll turn to the chat and I'll start from the top. If you could start with the word question, or even a big Q with a colon, because that's really the only way I can sort out quickly the comments from the actual questions. And for new people, I'll put this little banner up here. Okay, I got a little banner. Where's that banner? There we go. I'll put that up for a little bit, just to remind people who come in afterwards. And as always, I'm going to do a drawing at the end. For those who are in the Real Guitar Success program, once a day they complete a practice session. 10 minutes is all it takes, and when they complete all 20 for the month, they get entered into a drawing. So we'll do that for an Amazon gift card. Let's start off with the first question, and this is from Shulamit. Do you have any tips for endings that make a song sound professional and polished, specifically for rhythm guitar accompanying patterns? So she's also saying that she knows that the end of a song can really leave the listener with either a good or a bad impression. You can have a great song with a bad ending, and that's kind of what the listener remembers, and that's true, huh? Often we remember the last thing that we heard with something. So let me see. I have honestly never thought about that before. I generally just end the song, and if it sounds right to me, that's good. And if it doesn't sound right, that's not good. Now, to analyze what I do that sounds good, I would say I often will end the song on the chord that is the key of the song. So if the song is the key of G, somehow that's going to make it sound final, ending. If you end on, let's say, that same, I've established the key very quickly with G, C, and D. That establishes the key of G. If I went, it doesn't feel complete. It feels like it's hanging in the air. Something's got to happen. There are a lot of kind of tricks at the end. If you're playing live, you can just let the chord ring. You can do a sharp. That makes for a good ending as well. Often when I'm coming to an end, I'm thinking this out loud. I'm thinking I'll often kind of give some hint that this is coming to the end. So I might go, this is an example and just one of many. No. I gotta get the key first. So I prepared, I don't know if you caught that, but I played that last chord before the end. It's actually the 5 chord, don't worry about that. I played it twice to kind of give it something different than the normal verse. I kind of drug it out a little bit, and that gives the kind of anticipation. The listener just feels, oh, something different is happening, and it feels like it's coming to a culmination. Listen. Now I add a little tag at the end where I could have ended like that. I added a little kind of jump to the C, which is the 4-chord key, and then back to the G. That gives a little extra push. That's a typical, we call plagal cadence, where you go to the 4 chord. I guess a plagal, they go to the 4 minor then. And that's a good, another one I could mention, using an actual cadence at the end that is kind of traditionally signifies the end of a chord. One of those, it's named the plagal cadence, comes from the classical music era, where you play this is the 5, I'm sorry, this is the key, 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord. I play that because that generally makes your ear hear that's the key. Play the 1, 4, 5 chord in the key, and then back to the 1 chord. Sounds like that's the home. So I'm going to play a plagal cadence now. G, 4 chord, 4 minor, and then done G. Now I'll play a little more song form. And I noticed that I did a little retard at the end. I slowed it down a little bit. And that again signifies to your ear, oh, it's coming to an end. I wouldn't overdo that. It sounds overly sappy to me, but little retard at the end, a little slow down. 4 chord, 4 minor. That's probably in this type of folk song the first time I've used that, the 4 chord, a minor version. Plagal cadence. A typical cadence, that's probably a better name for that, I just can't think of it. It's just the 1, 4, 5, in the key of G, that's G, the 1 chord, C, D, G. Or 1, 5. Very simple. I want to fancy it up a little bit. I'll add the 4 quickly at the end. You know, it's got to be short. If you drag it out, you expect something else to happen. That could work. 1, 4, 5, 4, and 1. I have a strong tendency to want to kind of do a reprise of that 4 chord to say da da da, and that'll feel like a real final ending for me. So those are some ideas, certainly not the only ideas. And again, I've never actually thought it out. Just I go with what kind of comes out and sounds good for that particular song. A fancier song might need a fancier ending. A very simple folk song, I'd probably lean towards the simpler side. Something too fancy at the end sounds cumbersome if it's basically a simple song to start with. Okay, let's go on to the next question. And please, if anybody has some additional questions about that, put it in the chat and I'll come back at it and I'll see if I can add to it. Or if you have some ideas too, I'd love to hear your comments, and I'm sure everybody else would like to get some more perspectives on that. It's definitely not a one way to see things kind of thing. I recently bought a Fender Strat. Cool. And I play some blues and country with it. What should be the first 3 to 5 things I should focus on learning? I already play a little acoustic guitar and open chords. I don't do the bar chord thing yet. Okay, this is Paul. So you've got a Strat. That's cool. And you already play some open chords on the guitar. The first thing that comes to my mind, and again, I'm thinking out loud, is especially in the blues and country, rhythm is so important. I would put a lot of attention in the early stages to getting the chord changes in time rhythmically. So I see this all the time. People say, oh, I know a dozen chords, but they hesitate or slow down when they change from one to the other, and it doesn't sound good. I would rather you had 3 chords and could change smoothly and clearly between those 3 chords. And you could play 100 songs with 3 chords, probably a lot more, but a lot with just 3 chords. Focus on getting in time rhythm. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You could try playing along with a song on YouTube. That's probably not the first thing I would do. First thing I would do is just get a metronome or a drum machine, get time and go as slow as you can and see how slow you have to go to where you can change without slowing down or missing the beat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and when I come to the 1, I want to be right on the 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Start with a simple strum, then add, you can add a little variety to it. So I'm right on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Even if you had to add a little gap, that would be better. 1, 2, 3, gap, 1, as opposed to slowing down or missing the next beat. Then you speed it up and get to where you can play it at the tempo of the song, a little fancier strum. Then try it with a YouTube video where you're playing with a song and you have to play it up to tempo. So the second thing I'm thinking of with electric guitar, bar chords. Really. They're easier on the electric guitar because the strings are lighter and the neck's a little thinner. It's easier to play bar chords. It's time for bar chords. That I would concentrate on getting the rhythm right and then really maybe at the same time start working on bar chords. And if you are a member of Real Guitarists, guys, go through the bar chords for everyone course. It's not only makes it easy to learn bar chords because I really break it down, but I'm teaching some important keyboard, fretboard, not keyboard mastery concepts along the way, how to get around the fretboard. So you're getting really a double whammy there. It really is a good way to learn the fretboard that I'm talking about, how to get around and where the roots are and how to move from one chord to the other, because you're using it right away. It's not all just theoretical in your mind. If you're not a member, I have some videos on YouTube. Just type in my name and bar chords, and I have several videos. Simpler with bar chord for my course. I really break it down step by step. Can't do that with YouTube. But it's better than just trying to wing it. The wrong way to go about bar chords is to just try to muscle through it. Play a whole bar chord, try to put it in a song, mess up, get frustrated, start moving your hand, tensing, getting bad habits. Better to do it a little at a time, start with the easier bar chords, break even the bar chord down to, instead of playing the whole bar chord, play a power chord. That's a partial bar chord. And I break this down more in the lesson, even on YouTube. And then build up the form of the chord. Practice the bars separate, then put them together. That's the idea. And of course, you do it in stages, and there are exercises that you can practice. I'm going to stick with that. I think probably those are enough to keep you busy for quite a while. In country and any popular style on electric guitar, yeah, that's where I'd put some of my first energy. Are electric guitars easier to play for persons with or advancing arthritis? I've never owned one, and I have no idea. Lots of buzz going on with the acoustics due to lack of pressure. Lots of buzz. Oh, you're getting buzz when you're playing the strings. This is Rod. So, that's a good question. I would say probably the short answer is yeah. But if you think about why, it's because the neck is a little thinner and the strings are lighter. Because it's electric, you don't have to worry about getting volume out of the thicker strings or the acoustics. You can get really light and it's going to be as loud as it is on the amplifier, as loud as you turn it up. And because it's easier to press down, it's going to be easier on arthritis. I have had a student come to my school, at least one, and I've heard from teachers of others that said their doctor recommended either piano or guitar for arthritis, but doing it just to where it's strenuous. In other words, doing very light strings. And that's what I'm getting to, is the point is not whether it's electric or acoustic. The point is it's really light strings and they're easy to press down. So there's another approach to that. You could take your acoustic guitar and put something called silk and steel strings on there, which are very light and easy to press. And then really, pay attention to your hands. If it's really getting sore, that's where you stop and you come back at it later. Do really short sessions and do simple exercises to keep your hands moving. That was the point of the doctor telling the person to play an instrument, is not to overdo it, but to keep those fingers moving and little by little kind of upping the game, keeping in mind, keeping in touch with where it's getting too strenuous or it's really starting to make your hands sore. The other possibility is putting very light, even electric guitar strings on your acoustic guitar. That would serve the purpose for the most part. The neck thing, the electric's a little thinner, but I don't think it's a big issue. It's the light strings. The problem with that is, if it's a problem for you, is that they're going to buzz and they're going to not be very loud on the acoustic. The electric guitar depends on the pickups. But that might not be a problem. You might not care about that so much. I think it's not that expensive to buy an inexpensive electric guitar and experiment with it. I think it's fun, regardless of whether it's easier on your hands or not. It's just fun to play around with another instrument and have some options. You'll see that because the strings are lighter and you've got the amplifier to amplify the sound, you can do certain things like lead comes out a little bit better. It's easier. You don't have to press so hard, and you can play things that wouldn't sound on the acoustic. It wouldn't come out. On the acoustic, finger picking works better. Electric, the strings are so thin, it just doesn't sound as good. It's worth experimenting. I would love to hear back if you do, but you can start by trying the silk and steel strings also. They're not the same sound as the steel. They don't have that bright, clear sound, but you can always change back. This is not something that's carved in stone. It's not going to change your guitar. Let's see. Okay, thanks for the question, Rod. Cecil is asking, I seem to have a hard time relaxing the fingers on my fretting hand. Yeah. As a result, my left arm tires too quickly, and I'm starting to have pain in my left elbow. Any advice? Well, there's a couple things going on, Cecil. From what you're telling me, the fingers and the elbow are not connected. So that's what I'm saying. They're probably two separate things. You're probably tensing your arm when you're playing, and then you're tensing your hand as well. Yeah, you do want to deal with that. It's going to make it hard for you to learn, and it could cause more serious problems as you progress. Let me think. The main thing I tell students is when they're tensing, and most people do, this is not just you, is they're trying to compensate for something by using force instead of subtle technique adjustments. So the trick is to pay attention, focus on, hey, I'm tensing here, consciously relax, and look to see where you can move your finger to get it to sound better without having to necessarily press harder. Now, you do need a certain amount of force. You can't put your finger lightly on a string and expect it to sound. You have to press hard enough to where it hits the string. But here's an exercise I often give students, even if they're not tiring. I'll use the thick string so we can see it and hear it better. I'll have them play a simple exercise. Let's use this one. It's one of the simplest. Right? I'm just playing one note at a time, 3 fingers. So I'll play the exercise. Now I'll play slow and play one note at a time as lightly as I can and see and keep pressing until it sounds. But I'm paying attention to how much pressure I need. Now, normally I would press much harder to get it right away, but I'm gonna see I'm using even a little less pressure than I normally do because I'm paying attention to it. I don't need as much. And then I'll go to the next string and do the same thing. I know it's a little tedious, but it's a really valuable exercise, and it's worth spending a little time on it each practice session, maybe as a warm-up for a week or so. Not all the time, not indefinitely. It's just a development for a week. So what you're doing ultimately is really putting your attention on just using as much pressure as you absolutely need. Now, you need to also check your hand position. Your fingers need to come up and down. If you're flattening out like this, first of all, you're going to hurt your wrist because you see what I'm doing. I'm putting a severe angle on my wrist, but I'm also not getting any leverage. No leverage this way. Now, that's extreme. You don't know people are doing like this. But you can use much less pressure when your fingers are up and down, angled, a good arc. Much less pressure than this. I really have to press hard to get, and the less angle, the harder I press, and the less, more buzzing I get anyway. So here's what I'm doing. I'm looking for this fulcrum. This is not strong. You can feel it. You can try that. This, very little pressure between my fingertip and my thumb. And when your thumb should be this on the fretboard. I'm sorry, this on the back of the neck. Now for the wrist, you keep the elbow, keep the elbow in, not tucked. It should be hanging. Here's an exercise to try to see if you're tensing. Make a chord. Hold the chord up with your fingers. let go of your fingers and your elbow should drop. If you let go and you're still holding up there, that's too much tension. You don't need that much tension even to hold up your hand. Let go, see where the fingers are holding it, and then drop. Do that several times, and do that a little bit. Every time you feel like you're tensing somewhere, you think you might be, try that exercise a few times. So ultimately, you want to have your elbow so it kind of dangles on the side, not tucked in and not stuck out, and just enough so that your wrist has a nice angle that allows your fingers to arc, not pressed up and not pulled back. The thumb should be behind the neck. Generally speaking, some people do this way, that's fine. Some people a little higher and a little lower, but this doesn't work well for a lot of people. I shouldn't say that. It's not the best position if you're starting out. If you've been doing this for years and it works for you, don't worry about it. But if you're starting out, you might as well get this technique because it has advantages later on. Way down here, it's not going to work. That's not usually a problem. Usually I see people like, this is the problem I see. They tense their finger and they buckle their knuckle, or they're really pressing too harder than they need to press. Okay, those are some ideas. Every now and then while you're playing, you feel tense, you just stop and shake out and then go back to it. I do that still. And I find myself starting to tense up. It's usually because I'm thinking too much about what I'm doing. I'm trying to either use force to get something to work or with my mind trying to figure it out. Not that figuring is bad, but to actually play, relax, it has to get to the point where you don't have to think too hard about it. So that takes repetitions and doing it over and over to where it becomes more automatic. Good. Thanks, Cecil, for excellent question. Gave me a chance to do a whole little thing on the hand and tension. Let's see what we got next. Okay, moving up. When we make chords in the fretboard area, frets 1, 2 mostly, is there an exercise or lesson to build the strength in that area so chord stops buzzing? So this is Rogelio. Excellent question to come right after Cecil's question. Buzzing is not likely strength issue. Matter of fact, very unlikely. It's two issues. Possible, most likely. Let's say, and that's what you want to do. You don't want to have 10 billion possibilities and just start randomly picking. Go for what is most likely happening to solve an issue, and then go to the next most likely if that doesn't solve it. Most likely is your technique, your positioning. So everything I said to Cecil, go back and listen to that again. All of that was more likely to make better chords. In addition, I'll add, you want to get your fingers as close to the fret as possible without getting it on top. So back from the fret, you have to use more strength. Closer to the fret, much less strength. Getting this right, very little strength. It's not a strength issue. As a matter of fact, I'd say doing strength exercise is probably going to be a detriment because you're putting your attention in the wrong place and you're just going to make more tension. Get the technique right. Close to the fret, good angle, relax the hand, shake it out every now and then, try it again, get a good chord. The other issue is your guitar might need some adjustment, and that's something you might want to have checked out by a professional. Usually in the guitar store, they have people who can check your action. And I have, I have my guitars adjusted, once every year or so anyway, even though they've been adjusted before. I want, it's worth it for me to have the guitar working right and ease. And they do change. The neck tends to move. I just noticed the guitar I haven't adjusted for years. The action, little by little, kept creeping up because the neck is slightly bowing, and I'm going to have it adjusted. I just have to make time to take it in and be without the guitar for a week or so. It takes a little while for the guy I use. He's busy and he's good. So next comes, I understand the key, scale of a key example. Then we have the numbers. What is the difference with these, and are they used differently for chord progressions? I'm not clear on this. Okay, I have to think this out. So first he says, I understand the key of a song. So in the key of C, the scale, I'm sorry, saying the scale, the key of C, the scale would be C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, 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 D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So that's the scale. And we put a number on each scale degree. In other words, the first letter, we'll call it 1. And the second, D, would be 2, and so on. E would be 3. So he says, I get that, the numbers. Let me... so they are... they're referring to the same scale, but they are two different things, or we use them for different purposes. There's no specific difference, so to speak. It's kind of like I call this an acoustic guitar, and some people call it a folk guitar. It's not a different guitar. It's just people sometimes use different names for different purposes. A folk person might be saying that because they play folk music and they use this guitar, and that makes more sense to them. And a person who has an electric and an acoustic might say that because it differentiates. I'm using my electric, I'm using my acoustic. That's a way of differentiating. When you say the letter name of a note and the number, it's one and the same thing, but they might have different uses for different reasons. So for an example, if I'm saying the letter names of the note, it might help me if I'm reading some music and I'm figuring out where that note is on the staff. I know that's a B and that's a B, so I want to call it a B. I don't want to say that's a 1 and that's a B. The numbering system has a couple of uses. With one of the main, Rogelio has started off using numbers, Roman, and then put Roman numerals. When I see Roman numerals, let me say that, it refers to chords. And we use Roman numerals often to delineate chord progressions. So yes, the 1 in the key of C is a Roman numeral 1. When I see that, somebody is telling me we're turning that into a chord. That's the 1 chord. I don't use that Roman numeral just for an individual note. I might say that's a C note or it's the first note in the key or a 1, but I wouldn't say it's the Roman, I wouldn't write it as a Roman numeral 1. That would be a C major chord. Capital, a big Roman numeral indicates a major chord. A small Roman numeral, a little baby I, would be a minor chord. So when you see that, it means chords. And we use that often with chord progression. So say capital Roman numeral 1 would be the 1 chord in the key. Capital Roman numeral 5 would be the 5 chord in the key of C. That would be the 1 chord C and the 5 chord C. So I'm going to write a chord progression as 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, 1, 5. You could also say, play a C chord, letter name, G chord, right? We often use Roman numerals so you can see the pattern. So let's say I change to a different key. I'm playing the 1, 5, 1, 5. I don't have to say C, G. I wouldn't say that because now in the key of E, that's not a C anymore. I could say the pattern is 1, 5, 1, 5. Whatever key I'm in, the key of E would be an E. 5 would be B, and so on. Change that to another key, a key of G. Now the 1 chord is G. Still a 1 chord, 5 chord, 1 chord, 5 chord. So we're analyzing the movement of the chords, not the... that's a chord progression. It's the distance between the chords. 1 chord to a 5 chord. Same distance, but depending on what key, it's going to be a different chord. And that's all I can think to say about that right now. Please ask more questions, Rogelio. I know you're on the call. I'd be glad to answer some more questions about that, and if any other questions. But I'm sure, depending on what you're thinking, there's a lot of areas in that I could expand on. Let me go to the chat questions for now. Again, if you're going to write a chat question, please start with the word question. There's a lot of comments, and I can't really read everything to figure out if it's a question or a comment. And that way, I'll just hit the ones that say question. I'll start from the top. Okay, let's see. I'm looking for question. My eyes got stuck on something about Senator Feinstein. Whoops. Question. So we're looking for question. 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 I see one. I just started doing, this is Kevin, just started doing fingerstyle. Good for you. I have a hard time getting much volume on the 5th and 6th strings. Maybe just need more practice, but thought I'd ask. That is a good question, actually. So you're talking the thumb, 5th and 6th string, right? And I hope we're on the same page. This is the 6th string, and this is the 5th string. I do know sometimes people they call this the 1st because it's closer to them. So please tell me if we've got that mixed around. For the record, this is the 6th string and this is the 5th string, okay? And I'll assume that's what you're saying. So you're talking the thumb, and on acoustic guitar, it is kind of soft. On the nylon string guitar, I use a technique where I'm using my thumb and part of the nail, and it gets a louder, clear sound. But I wouldn't do that on my acoustic because it's going to chip at my nail. I'll deliberately avoid hitting the nail. So it's softer. It is softer than the higher strings. Because the higher strings are brighter and they cut through more. I think with a combination of practicing, so you're more confident when you place your thumb, will give you if not a lot louder, it'll be a confident note. And a good confident bass note that punches through will do the job. There is the possibility of using a thumb pick. Listen to this. That really makes the bass note shine. It basically gets it up to the volume of my fingers. I have to get used to it. It's like anything else. I found it not that hard to get used to a thumb pick. I thought it would be harder, actually, but everybody's different. You might want to come back at that as you get a little more experience, or get a few thumb picks and experiment and see if you like the sound. And, it's going to be awkward. That's a done deal because you're not used to it. But if you think it's worth putting in some time and energy to get used to it. Next question. When you make chords in the fretboard area, it's the same question that he said ahead of time. Okay, we'll skip that. I've been playing a while and have pretty good calluses, but recently I have had a very tender middle fingertip and can't play. Any idea how to avoid this recurring? I have to say, I've never, I have had that happen, and it just went away fairly quickly, and I didn't worry about it. You couldn't tell that I have calluses. If you look or felt my fingers, you probably wouldn't say I have calluses. What happens when you play long enough, you start off getting calluses. The skin gets thicker. That's a protection mechanism. And then over time, the fingers this is my way of thinking about it. The fingers figure out, hey, we're going to be doing this. You might as well get used to it. And so the nerves just slightly back off a little bit and the skin starts smoothing out. Basically, it doesn't hurt my fingers, and I've been playing for years and years and years, but there's no real calluses. So you don't have to have calluses to necessarily not have pain in your fingers. My guess is you're having just some adjustment with nerves in your fingers, and it's probably, obviously, anytime something hurts, I would back off a little and kind of lean into it. Just feel, how much can I do before it gets too sore? Don't try and push too hard. That can sometimes cause more problems that will endure. Just back off a little bit, but don't stop either, unless it's super painful. But if you stop, sometimes that actually makes it take longer to get through it. And this seems to be all kinds. I've had some shoulder problems. That's exactly what we're going through with the doctor again. Yeah, you got to do some exercise. Don't push it to the point where you damage it more, but you got to keep it moving, and then little by little increase the exercise, the time that you spend. Over time, if it gets sore again, back up a little bit and come back at it. The same thing with all muscles and body type issues. So that really applies to all the finger and hand and wrist things. Good luck with that. I hope it's nothing more serious than that. I couldn't know. I'm not even if I was a professional therapist or doctor, I'd have to see your fingers or get more information. So, but I'm not, obviously. I understand the scale. Okay, that's the same question, so I won't read that again. Rogelio says he used the guitar for therapy. It helps tremendously. What can we do to keep our thumb and fretting hand in the middle of the fretboard? My thumb seems to want to creep up, but still in the back. Well, I would say that's probably okay, Rogelio. I've seen a lot of people that the thumb creeps up here, and it seems to work fine. Even myself, I notice, depending on the chord. And bar chords, I tend to move it back because I need a little more stretch, but it'll move. I think that's really okay. I wouldn't worry about it, I guess. I don't think it's a problem. If it's coming all the way over, again, there are great professionals that play that way. If that's your style, it has some limitations, but you work through it and get used to it. If you're starting out, I prefer my students to get used to this because it gives more flexibility and movement. But if that is, you've been playing for a while and this is this, I wouldn't worry about creeping up and down a little bit. What classics learner? Oh, here we are. Okay, I got it. Oh, Kevin's saying he had something with the fingertips himself, and that he had it twice, and it was the index finger, a nerve thing inside my finger, and it went away after a couple of days and hasn't really recurred. I would say the same thing. I'm sure I just didn't pay that much attention to it. It's happened several times over many years, and it just went away fairly quickly. I assume my finger's just doing some adjusting and getting used to something. I get that kind of in different, like my toes sometimes. I get a pain in my toe, but it goes away pretty quickly. I know from enough experience with the doctor, there's no point in running to the doctor. They're not going to do anything. Thank you for that. You're welcome, Rogelio. Okay, that's all the questions. I'm at the back. I'm going to do the drawing. And while I'm doing the drawing, if you think of a question, add it to the end, because I'll go right to the end and see if I got any last-minute questions. So let me get out my little papers. Found this guitar. Okay, so, and again, for those of you who came in later, once a month, I do a drawing for the people in Real Guitar Success. They do a practice session every day, 5 days a week, just 10 minutes, spend on it. You can save it in your favorites if you want to work more on it later. And then at the end of the month, they check each one off if they do it, and they get put in a drawing. So we're going to give away a $50 Amazon gift card to, oh my God, small writing, what the heck? Dan, I got that. Can't see the email, but I see your name, Dan, and I'll figure out the email with my stronger glasses and send you your gift card. Thank you, Dan. Thank you for participating, and thank all of you for spending the time. And really, if you just spend a little time every day, I promise you will make progress, even if it's just 10 minutes a day. Just keep coming back at it. Tortoise in the hare. I've learned maybe the hard way. I was certainly tried to be the hare earlier in my life, and tortoise really does win every time. Keep at it. Thanks again for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you. I'll be back the first Thursday of next month, and we'll do it again. I look forward to seeing you. In the meantime, play lots of guitar and make lots of people happy with your music. Bye for now. Oh, last minute questions. Oh, one quick question. Oh, no, it's okay. We're done. It's somebody talking to somebody else. Smash Guitar Adventure, if you're part of Real Guitar Success, it's up and running, and you can be a brand new beginner and still do everything in the Smash Guitar. It starts from very beginning. But you can also add it to whatever else you're working on. It's a lot of fun.